Hi, I'm Phyllis Lang and welcome to Nightwear. This video will help you to begin logging your observations and save them in a number of ways. Share them to the Deep Sky Planner mobile app or other software. So to begin with, you're going to need to set up your equipment and the observing locations that you're going to use. So in order to set up your location, you need to go to the Location Manager. You can go there from this speed button, or you can reach it through the Options menu. So just to give you an idea, several locations are shipped with Deep Sky Planner, and you can choose one to be your favorite. You need to click the Favorite button to make it pre-selected in any of the reports and the observing log automatically. Of course, you can select other locations from the database in your observation or in other reports. So you can set up your own customized location if you wish, and you would do that with the New Location button or with the Locations menu. And the location editor looks like this. You need to enter a unique name, the time zone, and etc. If you need help finding your location, you can use a Google Map tool. So once you have your location set up in the database, you need to set up your equipment also. And you can do that with one of the equipment browsers, and you can access them through the Equipment and Observer menu item. So for example, we might set up an eyepiece. Click the Eyepiece Browser menu item and add your equipment. You need to have a unique name for the equipment item, and each equipment item will have different data associated with it. Eyepieces require the focal length to be entered. You can also enter the apparent field of view if you happen to know that. It is not required. You can see this asterisk, and an asterisk label means it's an optional data item. So you would save that and do this for whatever equipment that you intend to use in your observing log. Now we can do a few things with the eyepiece information in the database. We can back it up. We can save just the eyepieces to a file, and that becomes particularly useful when you want to save your eyepieces for use in another software program or the Deep Sky Planner mobile app. So if we go to the Export Speed button in the eyepiece browser, we can export exactly the eyepieces that we want to from our database to be shared with other software, particularly with the mobile app. So you can choose specific eyepiece items and drag it over to the list of items to export, or you can just add them all. So at this point, I've added all of my eyepieces to an export list, and I can save them to a file. You can save them to a file on your computer or even on the cloud. I have some storage set up on OneDrive. This is a Windows 10 computer, so OneDrive is built into the file management system. And yes, I have OneDrive. So to this folder, which is my Deep Sky Planner 7 backup folder, I can select a file to save to, and I'll just overwrite this particular file, which I made earlier today, and I'll save all of the exported equipment information to this file. And yes, I do want to overwrite it. So now I have stored all of these eyepieces out to the cloud. And if you want to check a file that's on the cloud, you can view it. Again, I'm on my OneDrive storage. You can store it on your computer storage or wherever you want to. So I want to have a look at the file that I just sent to OneDrive. So I'll open that up, and here is a visual report of that file. So theoretically, you could use this facility to export information from your Windows Deep Sky Planner database out to the Deep Sky Planner mobile app using OneDrive as the vehicle for transporting, because the Deep Sky Planner mobile app has support for OneDrive. You could save it in other cloud storage. The mobile app does support Dropbox and Google Drive. You could use either of those. And of course, you could store it really anywhere you want. Thumb drive, whatever. So that's how you would share your equipment items. If you look at the location manager, which we covered first, it has the same type of actions available. Now, you can also import data. You can import a list from some other software if the format is supported. You can import data from the mobile app, and you can view these files to make sure that they contain the data that you think. You can print the lists, and of course you can edit a data item. So that's pretty much how you're going to set up the equipment and the locations. You can share these between software and devices. One last statement is that you can back up all of this data, not only of the equipment and the locations, but your observations themselves, using the backup and restore facility. Now, these files are going to be much bigger than if you simply export the equipment that you want. This is a much more exhaustive backup and restore facility, but it is convenient. So you can back this up, all the data. You can choose a target for your backups. And again, I've chosen OneDrive because I can store it out to the cloud and restore it to other machines that are running Deep Sky Planner. So both of those facilities are available to you. Now let's have a look at how to enter an observation. The logging facility, the feature in which you add observations and review them from the database, is really integrated into all of the reports. So I'll just show how to do this using an observing plan that I happen to have on this installation of Deep Sky Planner. So I'm going to open an observing plan, and this is pretty much how the plan should look to you when you open it. Of course, there's styling issues that might be different and layout that may be different. So if you're at the telescope working through the plan, or you're working indoors after having observed, the process is pretty much the same either way. So I have a list of objects here in the report. I have a checkbox that shows whether I have observed it sometime. There is an observation of the object somewhere in the database. So the way that you would look at the observation or add an observation is going to be over in the detail pane on the right side of the lower part of the report. And if you don't see it, look for this pane separator. If you click and drag this, it will expose the details pane for you. And this recording is being done on a laptop, so we have a little shortage of real estate to work with. So I'm going to go up and click this hot zone button. It's a special feature that will pop the size of panes to pre-selected positions. So if I click this, it exposes the entire report area. So now I have more area to work with over here in the details pane. So if I right click on this first object, M81, I can look at several panes of information for that particular object. And the last tab you see there is observations. So all the observations in the database for that object are going to appear here. You can add a new observation. You can get the full detailed view of an observation, or you can open the observation in the editor. So I'm going to choose the detailed view. This opens the observation editor, and all the data is locked. You can't change it. If you specifically want to change something, you can choose this edit observation button. So this allows you to have a look at past observations, and all the information for that observation is available to you. All of it. So if you haven't observed or entered the observation, perhaps you want to add. So I'll click Add. Now I can choose the session during which I did the observation. This speed button allows me to enter a new session into the database. The time and observer and so forth is remembered between the logging of observations. That way you can streamline data entry. If you want to add a new item, like a new telescope, you click the speed button. Same with eyepieces and so forth. Some metrics are recorded and shown for you using the instruments and so forth that you select. That way you know more about exactly what your field of view is, for example, or the magnification that you're using when you make the observation. Also important is the location of the object in the sky. So we have the altitude of the object displayed and the number of air masses that you're viewing through and the amount of extinction due to the atmosphere that you're looking, that is coming to your eye. So anyway, you can use the observation editor to add all of your observation information. And once you're through, you can save it by clicking OK. So, once we do that for any of these objects, we can keep a careful log of all of the observations we make over time. There are other logging facilities if you prefer not to work from a report. Perhaps you would prefer to add observations using one of the facilities under the Observing Log menu item. You can use the Observing Project Manager tool, or you can use the Observation Browser. Now, the Observation Browser approach works very much like the equipment browsers did. You have a list of observations in the database. You can sort these observations by various columns here. Suppose you want to sort by the object name or the observer or so on. You can also edit each of these. So you can select an observation and open it in the editor. I can either click the edit button or double click the item itself, and I can review the data in that observation. Just as with the equipment editors, you can export certain observations to a file. You can import observations in a file. You can view the file or print it. And these are all designed the same way that the equipment browser import and export work. So you'll find them to be familiar. Now, the other way you might choose to add your observations is by using the Project Manager. The Project Manager is a way of organizing your observations. The observations themselves live in the right-hand pane. I can edit that observation, and I can add observations, import and export them. So this observation editor should look familiar by now. If you want to associate observations with an observing project, this is one of the tools you can use to do that. Now, if you were to delete a project, it doesn't delete the observations. It just deletes the project, which is essentially a container for the observations themselves. The observations are not deleted along with the container. So you will have safe observations here. You can import and export and view just as you did with the browsers. So that's how you add your observations to the log. Now, another facility that Deep Sky Planner offers is that it can export observations to OpenAstronomyLog format, and it can import observations from a file in OpenAstronomyLog format. Now, OpenAstronomyLog is an international effort to standardize the format of observation files so that they can be shared between software. Any software that supports the OpenAstronomyLog standard should be able to exchange data without loss. So, in order to export to that format, let's revisit the export facility. So let's say that I want to export these two observations to a file. So I select the two observations and I click Export. The two observations have been preloaded into this list. I can select one or both of these. I'll just select both. And the selection of OpenAstronomyLog format comes with the Save button. You'll notice that we have the normal Save dialog that you see in Windows. And you need to select the file type. Now, the Observing Log data format is native to Deep Sky Planner. So if you click down, you'll see other formats. You can export these observations in plain text, HTML, MS Excel, and at the bottom you see OpenAstronomyLog. So I'm going to click that one, and I've already saved the file out to OneDrive. I'm going to do it again so that you can see how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and replace it, and there, the file's been created. So in order to show you how the import feature works, I've temporarily deleted those two observations that I exported a moment ago. And I want to begin by clicking the Import button. Here again we have a Windows dialog box that allows us to choose the file. This file is out on my OneDrive storage, and we need to select the file type. So the import facility supports importing the native file format for Deep Sky Planner and also the OpenAstronomyLog format. So we're going to select the file that we just exported in OpenAstronomyLog format. We're going to read it into this dialog box from OneDrive. So we can select one or both of the items in that file, and we can import those into the database. And that's all there is to it. So just a couple of other comments about importing and exporting. If you have observations stored in a format other than Deep Sky Planner native format or OpenAstronomyLog, it may be possible to import your observations into Deep Sky Planner. I have done this in the past for users who wanted to move their observing log from AstroPlanner or from SkyTools. And sometimes this works very well. Sometimes there are some hitches because the items logged by those two products aren't identical to those logged by Deep Sky Planner or represented within OpenAstronomyLog. So there may be some hitches. If you are in one of these situations, please contact Nightwear support, and I'll help you import your log from another tool. It is either going to be really easy or really hard. It's very hard to predict. So now that I have recorded observations in the log, I'd like to report them. You might like to report them and print the report for safekeeping. You might want to create a file that you can post online. You might want to submit the report for an observing award. There are many use cases that the facilities will accommodate. There are two formats of report that you can create. You can create a detailed report that's more page-oriented, or you can create a brief report which looks more like a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet columns can be controlled, and you can sort by those spreadsheet columns. So let's have a quick look at each report format so that you can choose whichever suits your needs best. So this speed button is for the detailed log format. So we will create that document here. We have a number of search criteria across the top of the window that we can choose in order to form the report. So just to show you the ability of the projects facility, I can choose my observing project for green stars, for example, and select all the observations that were associated with that project and create a report. So there we go. Once again, I have limited space to show the window on a laptop. So I'm going to click the hot zone button to show a bit more. Here are all the data fields that are captured with this report. All of your notes are going to appear in this pane, and if you have an image associated with the entry, it'll be shown here. And we can scroll through the report to see observations of each object. So that's how the detailed report works. If you want to print it, you can use the printing facilities. I'll show you the print preview window. You can see how the report will look when you print it to paper. Or of course you could print it to a PDF file. and that's really handy for submitting for an observing award. You can also save these files, these reports, to different places. Again, you can send it out to cloud storage and so forth. So that's how the detailed observing log report looks. The brief log also has a speed button, but I don't show it here, so I'll go to the File menu, and I'll go to the New Documents menu item, and I'll create a brief observing log document. So you can see the filtering criteria, again displayed in the upper part of the window. These are identical to the ones you found in the detailed format report. And you can search for all your observations and display this spreadsheet type listing. As usual with the other documents, you can move columns, resize columns, hide columns, and so on, so that you can get the data that you need the most. And you can print this to paper or PDF or what have you. So there are two different formats that really suit different needs. I think you'll find that the observation logging facility in Deep Sky Planner fits a lot of different logging needs. The reporting facility is very flexible, and I think that you'll find the ability to share observations between applications is rather flexible. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.